Top stories now. A preliminary report by engineers on the extent of the damage at Parliament and the cost is expected to be handed over to Public Works and Infrastructure Minister Patricia De Lille on Friday. The fire that started on Sunday morning has left the National Assembly extensively damaged. For more on the story, we're joined by the Minister, Ms. Patricia De Lille. Thank you, ma'am, for your time this morning. What do we know at this hour?
Well, unfortunately, the engineering team, the professional team that came down yesterday, were not able to get access to the building yesterday because the temperature inside was still about 100 degrees Celsius. The day before, it was over 400 degrees Celsius. They then turned to using a drone to get access to begin to, do an assessment with the drone. But then the fire flared up for the second time yesterday afternoon. I was with them until 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock last night. And we are now working together with the drone footage of the ambulance services that were there. And hopefully they'll be able to get access to the building today. The building will be handed over to the police as a crime scene and to Public Works. So I still hope that we can have the preliminary report by Friday, but we will make further public announcements about that.
We tried to get hold of the National Heritage Council, and unfortunately they will not be doing any interviews to allow yourself and others to conclude investigations. However, they have expressed alarm at the event, saying that the National Assembly and its contents represents the memory of the nation. In terms of the museum, the library, some of the artworks that hang on the walls, what do we know about that? Are they intact, rather? Do we know?
Well, the latest report is that the museum and the library is still intact. There might be some water or smoke damage. We don't know the extent. But in terms of Parliament records, Parliament have got an off-site safekeeping of all Parliament confidential records. They also have another backup system which is in the basement of Parliament. So we hope that we've been able to save most of the confidential documents and other reports from Parliament. But there's definitely a backup system in Parliament. The building, of course, and the legacy of the building, that is gone, because that is where we had our first newly elected President, Tata Madiba, speaking from. Those kind of video footage, I think, might still be available also on video recording. But the assessment has started in earnest. We also have a fire expert together with a fire forensic team that is busy looking exactly where the fire started from. So I hope by the end of the week we'll be able to have more information now.
And with that appreciation, we understand, I guess I'm just trying to get some clarity from you because there's so much reports out there. In terms of books, we understand some books were smoldering yesterday and that the library was impacted. Firstly, is that so? And secondly, in terms of just moving forward, or maybe there's something that you might tell us in terms of the digitization of these records?
Well, in terms of the digitization of the records of Parliament, that is in the domain of the Speaker and the chairperson of chairs, Cedric Frolic. He's got more information about that. But for now, we don't have the latest assessment after the flare-up. The firefighters were there until after midnight. This morning, they are inside the building. So it's still not safe for anybody to go in until such time that the fire department feel it's safe for people to enter the building.
Ma'am, when you assess the conversations that are being had on, ground level, if you will, with some people showing a little bit of excitement that this has happened and others quite upset and saying we need to, get the recovery process underway, do you perceive that indeed this is a people's parliament? I ask you, perhaps, are we having tours that takes the average South African into these chambers, that takes the average South African down the hall to see the history?
Yes, unfortunately, those tours and everything else, even yesterday while I was there, there was a group from Durban, from eThekwini, that came for those tours at Parliament. But unfortunately, they had to be turned back. The Madam Speaker, as the Executive Authority of Parliament, is back now. She has been having several meetings with the management of Parliament to make the assessments. I have been tasked to look for alternative accommodation for Parliament. I have put two options to the Madam Speaker yesterday for her and the presiding officers to decide what is best. And we will soon be able to sort out that alternative accommodation for Parliament. But in terms of the legacy, the building itself, the history with the building is gone, but I think we've been able to save a lot of the records and the speeches and things that took place inside the building.
We spoke to COSATU yesterday, and they're saying that management needs to take the blame, yourself included. So there were two reports that were submitted, but one you commissioned back in 2019 on infrastructure projects, and then in 2021 that was following the fire in March. Why did it take time for those reports to be made public?
Now, there are two reports. The one is about the fire that took place on the 16th of March 2021. The report was presented to Parliament on the 14th of May. Because after the March fire, it took about 2 months for us to be allowed access into the building. So that report has been dealt with Parliament. There are records that we have reported to Parliament, including the remedial actions. The second report, which is called the BDO report, that report was commissioned by myself and the previous speaker to do an assessment on all the infrastructure projects in and around Parliament. And that report was handed to the speaker late last year. And the speaker has now asked for a briefing so that she can start processing the report. And then that report will be made public. So those are the two separate reports that we are dealing with. In terms of accountability of who was responsible and what caused the fire, I do agree with you that there needs to be accountability, but it needs to be based on facts. So we have to wait for the cause of the fire to be determined, where it started, the assessment of the fire. Right now, we don't have any conclusive evidence to base accountability on, which I agree must happen. The person that was arrested inside Parliament on the fateful day is appearing in court today. So I want to assure South Africans that as we continue with the assessment and the investigation and the various, remember there's a separation of powers. So the Speaker as the Executive Authority are responsible for Parliament. The Department of Public Works and Infrastructure are working and have been working for years together with Parliament on the maintenance, the repairs, and any changes that Parliament wanted. All those reports must be made public. It cannot be held back from the public. And as soon as the Speaker has had the time to look at the BDO report, then we will also make that public.
Public Works and Infrastructure Minister Patricia De Lille, thank you for availing yourself this morning.